The first win of the post-De'Aaron Fox era, the Zach LaVine era, the Jonas Valanciunas era, the Jake LaRavia era of Sacramento Kings basketball. And the Kings needed this one. They needed this one badly for multiple reasons. One, just the vibes weren't good. The vibes haven't been good around the Kings. For obvious reasons, so much off-court drama. You lose the first two games after you make the trade. But I feel like the new guys are bringing good vibes. I feel like they're bringing the energy. Like Jonas Valanciunas, this dude just seems like he's having a blast out there. And so the Kings just needed a win. They needed a win so we can all move on with this season. Because we can all think whatever our opinion is on what happened, all the drama, whatever, we're past the trade deadline. This is the roster that we got moving forward. And so now we got to win. We can move forward and we can just hope that we can get some more wins and start building on this, because this game wasn't pretty. It was a back and forth game, a roller coaster of a game. But after the last Kings loss, it was obvious this team isn't quite meshing yet. It was obvious they're going to get better with time. But in the Western Conference, you don't have time. You need to get wins. And so it wasn't a pretty game, but you came away with the win. There's still a ton of stuff that needs to be ironed out. There's the rotations are all over the place. Doug's just trying to figure it out. Every game, there's a new player making a debut. First it's LaVine, then it's Valanciunas, now it's Jake LaRavia. Who's next? Deshaun Nix? But the Kings just need to be able to come away with wins in this Western Conference to keep up and keep in the playoff picture here. And that's what they were able to do. And it sure wasn't because of the starters, the way they started this game, going down 29-9. And a lot later in the game, Katie Christensen on the broadcast was talking about how she didn't like how fans always got upset about who's starting and who's not. And it's like, it's not about who's starting, it's about how many minutes and the role they play. And that's what I was saying earlier in the season. I was on the side of it doesn't matter who starts. But since then, I've accepted that no, it matters who starts, because the Kings are an awful first quarter team. They allow so many points in the first quarter, and they came out again, and you go down 29-9. And this is a trend. It's not a one-time thing. And so it's hard to ignore at this point. You can't just say at this point that it doesn't matter who starts, because it does. And you might have been able to get away with it when you had Fox in the lineup with Monk, just because Fox could be a great defender. But the Kings' defense to start this game just was atrocious. And you had Zion Williamson out there just absolutely cooking us. And, he cooks everyone. He's a matchup problem for everyone. Thankfully, he can only play 28 minutes in this game. And so that kind of let us off the hook. I mean, that his health is what lets the entire league off the hook. If he's healthy, he is a top player in this league. 40 points in 28 minutes is insane. But man, was the Kings defense bad. You start out Sabonis on Zion to try to match strength for strength. And you have Keegan on Misi. And the problem really wasn't Sabonis guarding Zion straight up. Early on, Zion wasn't really scoring all that much just one-on-one with Sabonis. I think he got an early one on him, but the main way that Zion was scoring was getting switches, was getting mismatches, was catching the ball in transition, getting cross matches, and attacking them. Because Domas was able to hold his ground in the post early on in this game. But whether it was Misi coming and screening and Zion getting Keegan on him, or whether it was like DeMar getting matched up on him in transition, he was just killing whoever and going straight to the rim. And the Kings tried to load up on him. But that's a problem. When you're trying to match Sabonis with Zion, then you kind of have to live with that one-on-one. Because then when you're loading up, Sabonis is a big body. He's not able to help in the paint because he's the one guarding one-on-one. And so that's when the problem of the perimeter defenders came in, and Zion was just sucking everyone in, kicking out for three. You had Brandon Boston catching the ball on the right wing like 3 straight times and knocking down 3 threes from the same spot. Of course, you have Trey Murphy pulling a long 3 and hitting that. Alvarado hit an open 3 when DeMar helped off too much. And so the Kings really needed a player that could get in the passing lanes, that could help it and dig down and strip the ball while also being able to recover and run a guy off the 3-point line and affect a shot and then recover again. And, that's someone that they do have on the bench, but instead you had DeMar out there just getting absolutely cooked. He has looked absolutely awful because the Kings are asking him to go out and guard guys on the perimeter. Like, he was matched up on Jose Alvarado. It's not like he really got killed by Alvarado that much one-on-one, but it's the problem of DeMar having to help and then get back out onto the perimeter and chase these guys around the perimeter when that's just like, at this age for DeMar, he's just not good at that. He can't close out very well anymore, and he can't keep up with these guards. And so add that with Monk and LaVine also getting beat on the perimeter, as well as the Kings offense just looking, it was so slow. It wasn't pretty at all. 4 of their first 6 points came off Keegan just staying with the play and getting after it. The Kings were down 15-6 early on, and the only real good offense they generated was Malik Monk finding Sabonis in the pick and roll for an easy basket. And so you have an offensive lineup out there that can't score, that also can't defend. They were trying to post up DeMar. That wasn't working. I really do think it is DeMar that has to go to the bench here. And I'll talk about it later, but they were doing some interesting things with the lineups late in this game. But I really do think it should be DeMar that goes to the bench here and just be a super 6-man scorer that comes in and runs the bench unit. Sabonis was carrying the offense. He had a 3. He had 7 of our first 9 points when we were down 29-9. Yves Missi was doing a great job protecting the rim. That guy's a beast around the rim. And then we had the bench come in. And it was Malik Monk, Jake LaRavia, Keon Ellis, Trey Lyles, and Jonas Valanciunas. And Jake LaRavia came in and was incredible. There's nothing better than talking a guy up and having all of this optimism about what he can be. Because, I mean, that's pretty much what I do, is when the Kings acquire a guy, I look at like the most optimistic point of view of how this player could play on the team. And I mean, that's pretty much what I did thinking about, Zach LaVine and how he would integrate. Because right when the Zach LaVine trade happened, I was like, this isn't great. And then it's like over time when they're not playing a game, it's like you talk yourself into it. You're like, oh yeah, Zach LaVine's going to be great in the dribble handoff, and his shooting is going to be great. And, you look at the most optimistic point of view. And with Zach LaVine, it didn't exactly start out that way. And you're hoping it can get to that point with more time. But with Jake LaRavia, he just came in and he was everything that we hoped for. Just immediately gets a steal, goes down, gets a layup. Then, of course, he banks in a 3-point shot. Then what he was doing was he was playing super high up on these guards and just being super physical with them. And that was forcing the Pelicans guards into some uncomfortable situations. But you could see there would be times where the guards could easily get around him because his foot speed isn't great, which is like perfect for the Kings, right? We have so much foot speed. Sabonis, Valanciunas, Jake LaRavia, DeMar DeRozan. Man, so much foot speed on this team. No, but, LaRavia gets beat because he's playing so high up, but he just stays with the play and uses his length so well and blocks CJ McCollum from behind. And so he just brought that energy, and it allowed us to push the pace, get easy offense. Trey Lyles hit a 3, Keon Ellis hit a 3, Valanciunas got a dunk. Malik Monk, he wasn't having the best one. He was having a pretty rough one. Missed an open corner 3 early. Then he missed badly on a floater. Then he missed badly on another 3. He made some really bad passes. But he also made some really nice passes towards the end of the quarter that got this offense going and was playing well with Valanciunas in the 2-man game. I think I expected the lack of point guard play to be a problem at times. I didn't expect it to be as big of a problem as it is, just because I thought Monk would be a little better. Like, I thought when Monk was on the floor, we would still be solid, but he's been chaotic as the lead guy. I, of course, knew we'd struggle when he's off the court, but even when he's on the court, it's definitely been chaotic, and the lack of ball handlers is apparent. But Monk has the skills. He has the ability to make these great passes and these great reads. And so hopefully he can settle into being this primary playmaker, and hopefully the Kings will be able to find some flow offensively, because at no point in this game was the half court offense great, but it was when the Kings could get out and run in transition. That's when things started going really well. And that bench unit, that's what they provided. And so we were only down 7 points at the end of the first quarter after being down 20 early on, going on a 15-2 run to close out that quarter. After that burst by the bench, it was great. But then the second quarter started, and you have Zion out there, and we have Jonas Valanciunas trying to guard Zion Williamson, and that's not going very well, as you might imagine. And again, the Kings were loading up, giving up easy looks on the outside. And so it just kind of felt like, okay, we had this cool run, but the honeymoon period with this bench is over. It lasted about 4 minutes, but it's over. I think that's when Brandon Boston really started knocking down a bunch of threes at the start of that second quarter. I was wondering at one point, like, do you just try to put a guard on Zion and just try to get up into him and then make sure the help is there when he gets by, and just really try to bother him and poke at the ball constantly and try to force turnovers? But they kept with trying to put the center, whoever that was, Sabonis or Valanciunas, on Zion. They kept at it, and Zion killed us the entire time, 16 for 21 from the field. I'm surprised, honestly, he only has 4 assists, because it felt like more, but Malik was turning the ball over a whole bunch, and he ended with 5 turnovers on the game. But then you had some of the starters come back in, and Zach LaVine finally got it going after he didn't score in the first quarter. I know Monk didn't score in the first quarter, and I'm not sure if DeMar did. I know DeMar had 1 point in the first half at some point. Don't know if it was in the first quarter, but when none of your scorers score, it's kind of a bad sign. But LaVine got it going, and he got it going by attacking the rim in transition. He is one of the best transition scorers in the league because of his speed, because of his athleticism. He's always getting out and running, and so we saw that here. And we hadn't seen it be totally successful in the first 2 games, but here is more of what you expected, him getting out and getting these easy looks in transition. He still was struggling in the half court. He still hasn't really gotten it going from 3. He went 1 for 7 from 3 in this game. It's like the most predictable thing to happen, that he gets traded here and forgets how to shoot from 3. But that perimeter scoring, transition scoring was important. And he kind of stopped the Pelicans' run. Him and then Sabonis was scoring inside. And Zion went out of the game. And those were obviously the important minutes. When Zion goes out of the game, you got to go on a run. But the Kings started getting beat off the perimeter too easily, and the Pelicans were scoring in these moments when Zion was off the court, and that's when it feels like you're really not going to win against the Pelicans if you can't win those non-Zion minutes. And the Kings just couldn't get any offense in the half court. Keegan tried to attack a closeout, stepped out of bounds again. That's becoming a big problem for him right now. He's been doing that a lot, but it was just all about transition scoring. If the Kings were not scoring in transition, if they were not pushing the pace, they were not scoring. The only scoring they had was when Keon just hit a 3 to bail us out when we were just passing around the perimeter. I think that was when the Pelicans went zone and we were just passing around the perimeter. Trey Murphy, he finally missed a 3 in the second quarter, but he started this game 3 for 3 because of course he did. Him, CJ, they love killing the Kings. I had some hope early on that maybe this would finally be a game where CJ didn't go off against the Kings, but I was very wrong. But the game got pretty chaotic, and so the Kings messed up one fast break opportunity, but then got the stop. DeMar gets the rebound, and then he just throws a horrible pass up court that goes out of bounds, and it should have been our ball, but it wasn't. But it was still a really bad pass. Both teams just exchanged awful alley-oop passes. I thought we were going to get to see our first Monk to LaVine oop, but Monk threw that thing to the sun. I don't know. That thing was so high up there. Like, who do you think Zach LaVine is? I know he's athletic, but chill out. But Keegan got it going a little bit, and I thought Keegan had a really nice game because he was just so aggressive. He hit a nice mid-range fadeaway. Then he finally hit a corner 3. He was struggling from 3, but he just kept shooting. And this is something I've said, like, Who cares about being efficient? Just shoot the ball. He went 2 for 8 from 3, and I don't care. Just shoot the ball. And he went 7 for 15 from the field, taking 15 shots. That's second most on the team. That's what we like to see. He was just getting after it. It wasn't his most efficient game. He's usually just this guy who's super efficient, who doesn't want to be taking the most shots. He wants to be efficient with just dunks at the rim. And of course, he's going to take his 3-point shots. But I just liked how aggressive he was, and he was just getting after it. So Keegan had those 5 points. LaVine had a transition dunk that cut it to 8, but then they gave it right back because they had 3 traffic cones out there. But LaVine again at the very end was able to go full court and then get a dunk. So Zach LaVine very much showing up in transition. But the Kings allowed 31 points in that first quarter, 34 points in that second quarter. These lineups with Monk and DeRozan and LaVine are just not good. 3 bad perimeter defenders with Sabonis as the back line. It's just not going to cut it. And so the Kings were down 11 at halftime, and that was with LaVine being non-existent in the half court, with Monk and DeRozan combining for 1 point, and Monk having a ton of turnovers. But it was Sabonis, it was Keegan, and it was the bench kind of keeping us in it. And it's just so nice to have a bench. In this game, the bench played 68 minutes. 68 minutes. 68 minutes and combined for 31 points. It's so nice to have a 9-man rotation that you can actually trust to go out there and give you solid minutes. And, I love Trey Lyles. I love what he brings, but it's nice that he doesn't have to be like the top bench player, and he can come out and just play 10 minutes because sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not, right? Like he was just put in a role that he shouldn't have to be. And that's kind of the thing about this Kings team is the Kings have a bunch of talent. The problem is kind of you're putting guys out of position and in roles that they really shouldn't be. But it's nice with the bench now, at least you do have the roles kind of sorted how they should be. The third quarter got off to a pretty good start, other than a CJ McCollum 3, where I'm just like, bro, like, what did we do to you? I get the Kings didn't draft you, but like, it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go. The fans, we're not the ones who didn't draft you. Please just let it go. He did miss 2 threes right after that, at least, but man, is it annoying. But the start to the second half was much better than the start to the first half because they were actually able to get some pace going and they were able to get out and run and get to the basket and score easily. DeRozan got a field goal. Monk got a field goal. Their first field goals of the entire game. Got the 11-point lead down to 6. And then it felt like Sabonis could not get a foul call, and DeRozan on one possession didn't get a foul call, and Sabonis didn't get a foul call, and then DeMar got a technical. And I gotta say, getting technicals works. DeMar got that technical, and then what do you know? The Kings just start getting every foul call. Complaining and getting a technical works. Sabonis then just kept getting to the line. He drew the 3rd foul on Zion. The Kings lived at the free throw line in the 3rd quarter. And so it wasn't even super pretty to start the 3rd quarter, but they were just getting to the line and staying right within 6. And then Zion went out. Zion went out when the Kings were down 6. And the Kings weren't even shooting well from the free throw line, but just the sheer number was keeping them in it. And you had Sabonis missing 2, but Keegan comes down with the rebound, gets an and 1. And that was a big part of how the Kings started to get it going in the 3rd quarter. Zion goes out, the Kings got after it on the offensive glass because they couldn't really hit a 3. They were really struggling from 3-point land, and throughout this game went 11 for 41. But they were just getting after it on the glass, getting extra possessions. They got 11 offensive rebounds to the Pelicans 5. Won the rebounding battle by 12 in this game. DeMar, he was getting offensive rebounds, he only got 1, but then he forced CJ to fall out of bounds on another one. He was getting in the right place at the right time. Sabonis, of course, had 4 offensive rebounds. Keon had 2. Valanciunas and LaRavia, they both got 1. And even in moments where they weren't getting the offensive rebounds, they were still getting after it and putting pressure on the Pelicans. And so despite not being able to shoot, that's a big way they were getting to the free throw line. It's just getting inside, getting rebounds. And then, of course, it's Keon Ellis who comes up with the steal, gets it to Keegan for the dunk to take the lead in this game. Right after that, though, Sabonis picked up his 4th foul. And that is always the worry when Sabonis is asked to guard Zion Williamson, is that he's going to get in foul trouble. But thankfully, we do have Jonas Valanciunas, who's able to come off the bench and provide some really solid minutes. He just came in and was just a big body, going vertical. He set multiple big screens. One got Levine right to the rim. He was just flattening guys out there, just pulling down rebounds. Like, he's just a massive dude who's able to just be a force. Keegan also was able to hit another 3. Levine couldn't hit a 3, but the 3s did kind of start falling a little bit there. Keegan hit one, Monk hit one to go up 7. The Pelicans got hit with a technical foul at one point, and the Kings offense just started humming. Levine getting to the free throw line. Malik Monk hitting a really tough turnaround. And by the time Zion Williamson came back into this game, the Kings had an 8-point lead. So when he went out, the Pelicans were up 6. When he comes in, the Pelicans are down 8. 14-point swing. And even from there, Levine finally hit a pull-up 3. Valanciunas battled inside to draw a loose ball foul, going after an offensive rebound. Valanciunas got a block. Malik Monk hit a pull-up 3. Zion came in, and he had a couple of really nice finishes around the rim. But it didn't matter because the Kings offense could not be stopped. And once they finally started to hit some 3-point shots, it was over. They scored 45 points in that third quarter to 22 for the Pelicans. And the Kings went 15 for 18 from the free throw line. And to start the fourth quarter, the Kings kept that momentum. Zion turned it over. Keon picked the ball up, pushed it up for a Malik Monk and one. And even Monk turned it over, but then just got it right back from Brandon Boston and hit Keon in the corner for 3. And at that point, the Kings went up 18, 105 to 87. So from down 20 points to up 18. And Jake LaRavia was doing some nice things. He found Monk open for 3, even though Monk missed it off of a really nice drive. Got an offensive rebound in that stretch. Got a block. Then once the Kings went up 18, they got a little 3-point happy. And, I understood it. I understood the shots that they were taking. But it's just a matter of, okay, you've missed a couple in a row now. Now it's time to start getting it going inside. The problem, though, was that the pace really slowed down. There were a few times where Valanciunas was running in transition and getting position inside, and the Kings just weren't moving the ball quick enough to get it to him. And they were keeping it on the outside, and then they would shoot a bad 3. Or they would just get into their offense and, miss a shot. But you've missed the opportunity. You're not moving it as fast as you were. So they just lost that pace. They lost that momentum a little bit. And then Zion going the other way was just dominating inside. And the Kings had 4 fouls within 3 minutes of the quarter starting. And so Sabonis came back in when they were up 12. But the Kings offense had just gone cold. And the Pelicans were getting inside, drawing fouls. Trey Murphy had an and one. Malik Monk and Sabonis both missed open 3s. And the Pelicans went on a 14-0 run because the Kings just could not get anything to go and could not get any good offense. But they also couldn't get a stop, and so they couldn't get out and run in transition. To break that 14-0 run, Malik Monk and Sabonis go to the pick and roll, or actually it was the pick and pop. Sabonis was open at the 3-point line, but Monk didn't want to give it to him, so he was just kind of dribbling around inside until Sabonis said fine and cut to the basket, and Monk found him, got to the free throw line, knocked those down, and Zion went out of this game, and so that was big. But the Kings didn't really capitalize. Zach LaVine had 2 pretty poor turnovers. Of course, it was Keon Ellis to get a steal and layup to put us back up 6 and kind of restore some calm within the team. But what I was really worried about when the Kings, they went up 6 with that Keon Ellis layup with 5 minutes left. And I was really worried that Malik Monk was out of the game. So I thought they're going to put Monk in for Keon Ellis. We're going to go with this bad defensive lineup. The Pelicans are going to put Zion back in, and we're going to lose this game down the stretch. That's what I was thinking was going to happen. But to Doug Christie's credit, he rode with Keon Ellis most of the way home. And DeMar got it going a little bit. So we kept Monk out of the game because we were like, okay, we're getting enough offense here. Keon Ellis had that strip of Zion that was called a foul, challenged, and then upheld. And then we had the Sabonis illegal screen, which was a bit rough. The officials in the second half definitely made this game about them. It wasn't great, but the Kings won, so I don't have to be too upset about it. But Sabonis had that fifth foul, and he still is guarding Zion, so Zion's just going at him, and they got it within 1 point. But every time the Pelicans got it within one possession, the Kings would respond. Sabonis got it put back. LaVine drew a foul. And then I saw Malik Monk coming in, and I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen? But it was Malik Monk coming in for DeMar DeRozan. I was like, yes, Doug, yes, that is the correct substitution here. And the Kings were able to get stops down the stretch. Sabonis played some great defense on Zion, and Keegan came over for a block. I will say then LaVine had just an awful turnover because the Kings ran in transition after that play. But either you got to take your time to break down the defense when you're playing 5-on-4, or you just got to pull it out at that point and say, we're just going to kill some clock here. But instead, LaVine just without looking, just turns around and whips a pass into Sabonis at his feet and turns it over. But thankfully, Alvarado missed on the other end. But again, there are definitely times where you're like, man, no point guard on this team, and it shows. But you had that Jose Alvarado miss, and the Kings call timeout to kind of settle things down. And Doug Christie puts in DeMar DeRozan for Keon Ellis. And so did I agree with this sub? No, not really. And the reason I didn't agree with it is because I think, yes, totally, you have an offensive possession, put DeMar in, but don't put him in for Keon Ellis, because there's going to be a defensive possession right after that offensive possession. And you want to score, but you have the lead. It's better to protect this lead. Of course, you put DeMar in because he's the guy you're going to go to. And this is why I think DeMar should come off the bench, but he should also close games a lot of the times because his offense is so crucial. And he came in and he hit a midi. But then I just worried about the defensive end. And so I feel like if you're going to go to DeRozan and you're not really going to do much else offensively, there's not a point to still have Malik Monk out there as much. So I think he still should have gone with Keon there, but it worked out. DeMar hits that midi. Sabonis then fouled out as Zion just barreled into him for an and one. Valanciunas comes in. DeMar misses his next mid-ranger. Malik Monk fouls McCollum at the rim. Up 4 with 15 seconds left. McCollum misses 1. Kings get it in. Valanciunas, calm as you like, shooting 90% from the line this season. Knocks them both down, and the Kings get out of here with the win, 2-0 against the Pelicans. We own the Pelicans now. Let's go. Who cares about their record? They beat us 6 times last season. We're going to celebrate some wins against the Pelicans. A roller coaster of a game, but a game the Kings needed to win, a game they won. And now we can go to some individual performances. Domantas Sabonis led the way in this one, 27 points, 16 rebounds. His assists have been down, 2 assists since the trades. I mean, the offense, clearly they have still not figured this out. But it was definitely better in this game, and one of the reasons is you're just not playing as good of a defensive team here. And this is a Pelicans team that Sabonis can dominate, because Misi can block some shots inside, but one-on-one with Sabonis, he can't guard him. And so Sabonis was able to get inside, and he did it a lot. The Kings were able to get him the ball a lot in that third quarter, especially just through him running the floor and then getting to the middle of the lane, or even in the half court cutting to the rim. So it wasn't just throwing to him in the post, it was getting it to him on the move, and that is the best way that you can get it to him. And so after a 10-point performance in the last game, it's good to see him come out and really dominate a game. Of course, he did foul out. He was guarding Zion. I mean, what do you expect? But he was the only guy that could score early for the Kings, and he had a really good game. LaVine, 7 for 14 from the field for 22 points. He went 6 for 7 inside the three-point arc and 7 for 7 from the free throw line. So only one miss outside of his three-point misses. And the three-point shot will come. It'll come especially as he gets more comfortable. I'm not really worried about that, but of course we gave the Bulls Kevin Huerter. They gave us Zach LaVine. Was there like some swap of 3-point shooting ability in there? Hopefully not. I mean, Kevin Huerter went like 1 for 4 tonight, so I don't think it was a swap. I think we're okay. Definitely some bad moments for LaVine in terms of turnovers. He turned the ball over in some pretty bad moments. A lot of it is him like trying to drive one way and it's not there, and then he tries to spin and fling a pass that's really just not there. Definitely don't think you can rely on him to be like a primary ball handler. And so the Kings need to get a point guard. It would be really nice to sign a point guard in the buyout market. They went and got Deshaun Nix on a 10-day. And I don't know the most about Deshaun Nix, but what I do know is he's probably not the answer at the point guard. So it'd be great if we could get a veteran on the buyout market, but I also understand that that's probably unlikely because I don't think Sacramento is exactly the most, the greatest destination for these buyout market players. We could go get Isaiah Thomas, but that's probably about it. So we're going to have to live with what we got here and kind of try to power through with Malik Monk being the only real point guard. And I say real, like he is a point guard. You know, he's not the most point guardy of point guards, but he is. He had 7 assists with 5 turnovers, 13 points, 5 for 14 from the field. In that first half, it's like we weren't good with him out there on offense. Things didn't look good. He was turning the ball over a ton throughout this entire game, but they only got worse when he went out. So he's still a positive. And, you know, he hasn't played up to my expectations as a point guard, but it's only been 3 games. And so I think as these guys learn how to play with each other, just everyone's going to kind of settle in here. Like DeMar in the past 2 games here has had really slow starts. He went 4 for 12 from the field for only 11 points, missed a bunch of open threes, 0 for 3 there. And his defense wasn't good. And LaVine's wasn't good, and Monk's wasn't good for the most part. And so I do think, like, DeMar, he could come in as a sub and really be the main offensive guy in those second units and run those second units. But then also late in games, like we saw here, Doug Christie kind of playing musical chairs here and get DeMar in there for those offensive possessions where we need him to be able to create some offense for us when it's late in games and things kind of slow down. And that's when he's important. But I think early in the game, when we want to set the tone both defensively and also getting the pace up, I just think that it would probably be best to play Keon Ellis in that spot. I have no doubt that he's going to be better than he's been in like these last to start these last 2 games, and 11 points here. He's gone through his down stretches this season and he's always bounced back from them. But I still think no matter what, I think he should probably be the guy that goes to the bench. I just think that makes the most sense right now. And then the last starter, Keegan, 19 points, 8 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals. Right now, he's just having a really nice second half of this season, being more forceful inside, offensively, and being just as forceful defensively. Had a bunch of really nice help blocks on Zion, playing some really good defense, and then offensively, just letting it fly, being aggressive, driving into the lane, taking a nice mid-range fadeaway. Like, that's what we want to see from him. Off the bench, you had Keon Ellis playing 32 minutes and giving you 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals. 4 for 6 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. This guy just needs to be a starter. Like, it's not a coincidence that he's out here being a plus 14 and he's just always in the positive. Plus minus isn't the greatest statistic. Sabonis was a minus 13 in this game, right? And that's not because Sabonis was bad. Sabonis was good. But sometimes you can use it and say, man, Keon Ellis, every time he comes in, good things happen. And every time it feels like there needs to be an important play made, it's Keon Ellis coming up with a steal and pushing it in transition and getting a score on the other end. This dude is just so good. And then we got a couple of new additions. Valanciunas, 14 minutes, knocked down those clutch free throws, 6 points, 5 rebounds. He's just so much better than Alex Len. You know, he's just a steadier force out there, and he can actually grab rebounds and box guys out and tear rebounds away from guys. I will say late in this game, just speaking of boxing out, DeMar DeRozan had a great box out late in this game where he boxed I don't know who it was. He boxed a Pelican off screen, like below the hoop into the crowd. Just really boxing him out. Because last game I said I don't think DeMar boxed out once. I saw that late in this game. He was boxing out. About 14 very solid minutes for Valanciunas, including being able to go to him when Sabonis fouls out late in this game and knock down those clutch free throws. And then we saw Jake LaRavia for the first time, 12 minutes, 7 points, a steal, 2 blocks, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, including an offensive rebound, 3 for 4 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. Yes, it was a banked in 3. Do I care? Absolutely not. That makes it even better. That makes the crowd go even crazier when that shot banks in. And he's playing some good physical defense, getting up into guys, making them uncomfortable. He got called for 1 blocking foul because a guard got around him. Like, that's going to happen sometimes. But he's just trying to get up into guys, and he's kind of trying to play defense from the side and play from behind with his length. And you could tell it made the Pelicans uncomfortable, and they didn't always really know what to do with that. So I think he's just going to be a very solid addition here. And then Trey Lyles, 1 for 5 from 3. Yeah, not the greatest there, but 5 points and 2 rebounds. And it's just nice to not have to have the bench live and die by whether Trey Lyles is hitting threes. He wasn't hitting threes in this game, and that's okay because other guys were able to come in and contribute off the bench. Because before, it's just like, if the bench is going to even play even with the other team's bench, it's because Trey Lyles is like 4 for 5 from 3. But now the Kings are able to outplay the Pelicans bench, and obviously the Pelicans do not have a good bench, so it's not like the greatest achievement, but still good minutes from our bench. And so now the Kings go to Dallas, and they go on a 3-game road trip to Dallas and then New Orleans twice. Dallas, Anthony Davis had that weird injury today. I don't know what's going on with that. He said he was fine, but maybe he sits out a game here. I don't know. So I don't know if we're going to see Anthony Davis. He was incredible to start in his debut with Dallas, but then just went down with that injury, which it's just ironic. It's like everyone accepted Anthony Davis is this great player. Like, obviously that's not why people are mad you traded Luka, but it's like then he goes down with an injury and you're like, oh yeah. And that's why it was a bad trade, among other reasons. But Dallas has kind of been playing with that trade buff that sometimes you see. It always goes one way or the other. And with the Kings, it went the way you don't want it to go, where they get blown out the first game and lose the second game. But sometimes it goes the other way, and it feels like that's what it is with the Mavericks beating the Celtics, beating the Rockets. And this is still a team, they traded Luka, and the fans are protesting outside the stadium, but this is still a very deep team, and we don't know who's playing. They have some injuries, so it depends on that. But they still got guys like Najee Marshall and Spencer Dinwiddie and Dante Exum. Like, these are solid players coming off the bench still, and they would have Derek Lively if he wasn't injured, but they don't. And then they acquired Max Christie, who's been really good this season. So when talking about a test for the bench matchups, like, this is a good one. This is a good one to see if our bench really can stack up against a really solid Mavericks bench here. They're a very well-balanced team, and the Kings have not been very good when it comes to opponent three-point percentage. And this is a Mavericks team that can hit some threes. They got a lot of guys, Klay Thompson, Kyrie Irving. We know PJ Washington can get hot. We've seen that plenty of times against the Kings. We know Najee Marshall can knock him down. We saw that last year against the Kings when he was on New Orleans. Maybe Kessler Edwards will come in and have a revenge game against the Kings. It's just going to be an interesting game to see where the Kings really are at right now, because they beat the Pelicans, but the Pelicans aren't exactly the greatest team, and we just haven't played the greatest teams yet, even though we're 1 and 2 here. So it'll be a good test. But anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back to recap the game against Dallas on Monday, so I will see you guys then. Peace.